Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for hanging out till almost 5, so I can wrap it up here. I'm so happy to be with all of you and just to share a bit of my story and how this all came about. Re-Invention is the parent company. G.E.A.R actually is a social business that comes under Re-Invention. Which is now, Re-Invention has actually been on a very long path and has kind of evolved, but it has now, it's now in the process of becoming the nonprofit umbrella that our social businesses can form under, and funds, our net profits from our social businesses, the first one being G.E.A.R, can be reinvested back into Re-Invention and into the mission of what we're doing, and that money can also be used to support and be invested in the organizations and ministries that we are working with. I am just truly just a person who looked at what was going on in the world. I am not a statistician. I don't have a wealth of school or book knowledge, and I am certainly not an expert on poverty. It just breaks my heart. That's what it does, just to see people in cycles of poverty, especially children, teenagers that are in repeat cycles of poverty. Just breaks my heart. And I also look at their mothers and I think of the cycle they have been in, and it's generational. And I am just a person just like any of you that went, my gosh, what can I do to be a part of this, to try to bring around change? And so when I started thinking about that, I'm a hard worker. I work. And to me, that's what made the most sense. It was like, okay, we need to provide opportunity for those who are homeless and chronically unemployed, and in poverty situations, to be able to break those cycles. And so I went on a search. I just started Googling, seriously, and just started looking for people who were and are experts on poverty and these vicious cycles, who were doing something like this, who was offering work. I also looked at it too from the nonprofit standpoint, and organizations and ministries who are trying to serve people that are in this cycle of poverty, and thought it must be a really vicious cycle that you're trying to raise money, and there's so much competition for funds out there, and you're trying to raise all of these people up, and yet when you get them to a point where you've empowered them, whether it's through a humanitarian effort or it's Jesus, then what do? You've gotten them to a point where they are ready to approach a new life, but you don't have anything for them to step into, and so that's where work just made perfect sense to me. When I started on this path, and especially in my world, I was in the fashion industry, social enterprise, social business, reaching out, from yourself and doing something for your neighbor certainly was not a term that was used, and it certainly wasn't heard of. So when I would talk about my dream and my vision, people around me, family and friends, would be like, gosh, what do you want to do? But I just couldn't put a name to it. So when social enterprise and social entrepreneur came around, I was like, great, that's what I am and that's what I'm doing. And so that's what I have. I have a social business, and it's right here in Alabama. And I'm just telling you, this is a path that I have been on that has changed so many times. Sometimes it's just embarrassing because I've just persevered. If something hasn't worked, then I've thought about something else. And so with G.E.A.R and with Re-Invention, I just think we're really onto something. Not to say that it's easy. This is the hardest thing I've ever done, but I think we're on the right path, and I'm really excited about what we're doing. I started G.E.A.R with with single moms, right where I lived, right in Opelika. And they would do the sewing of the goods. We'll get to the goods and you'll be able to see them. But I just thought, okay, who is right in front of me? Who can I help right now? And those were single moms. in my community, and other seamstresses as well. And so I just started doing the prep work. I had never designed anything. I had never cut a piece of fabric into a design, but this stuff just started coming out of my head. And I knew I had the materials that I wanted to use and the textures and colors, and it just, I guess just my passion to serve just started coming out in these designs. And so we started out with single moms, but very quickly we actually found a homeless mission and in Montgomery, and it's called Friendship Mission, and we started partnering with them. And I really wasn't sure at that point. I'd been with G.E.A.R, I'd been at G.E.A.R and creating these goods for a very short time, but I'm just one, like I said, that just was like, okay, whatever. You know, this is something that I wanted to do, and I just kept thinking, well, if this comes across my path, I just better grab the chance and go and do it. Friendship Mission was started by Pastor Vince and Mary Rosado, and they started it in 1996, and they serve over 8,000 meals a month just from their mission in Montgomery, just on the west side. I started working with Mary. They do have a transitional program for the men and one for the women. And so what Mary had wanted for the women, she actually believed in what I was doing, and we were just a perfect partnership because she thought, you know, here are these women, you know, they're crack addicts, they're prostitutes, they're alcoholics, they have vicious cycles of poverty, and she wanted to make sure when they were coming out of this transitional program that they would be able to move forward, because if you don't have a place for them to go, if you don't have a way for them to move forward, all they know is to go back, and those are the survival tactics that they have. So Mary and I started working together. And so G.E.A.R came about. She was excited because it is, as Tom had mentioned, it's a collection of sustainable home accents and furnishings, and we do travel bags. And this fit really well with Mary for the women to work with. She liked the idea of the women working with their hands, and that they would see beauty come from the work of their hands. And she also liked that what they had accomplished, they could see it quickly. You know, if they cut something, or if they were sewing something, or they were serging something, they would be able to, when we were training, you know, in a 2-3 hour span of time, they would see something to come together and something beautiful come together, and they could be proud of the work they had done. So, trying to find space at the mission, it's very small. They're very, you know, strapped for space, and we had an old yellow school bus. And so we reinvented the old yellow school bus, and it's even on pancake tires, and we came in and we started the sewing center right in there. And so once we started this, we had sewing, but we also set up cutting and serging and all aspects of what we do with G.E.A.R right there on site. And we started on working with them on Saturday mornings, and the women were required to come and work with us for 3 hours. And I was just amazed at how excited so many of them were becoming to come and see the work of their hands, and had ideas, and started talking about their future. They actually started talking about, you know, what they would want to do the next month. They started talking about their children and possibly getting them back from foster care and different environments that they'd been sent off to. And so these were things, you know, just as we're sitting here just sewing or outside cutting, you know, I just hear these conversations going on, and I just was so just incredibly encouraged to see or to know that I was a part of something that I had dreamed of, that I'd had a vision for. So what I did, this is the Firehouse that we have moved into. I was working so much at the mission, and really becoming a part. I knew that Montgomery was the place that we needed to be. And so G.E.A.R was actually sprawled all over my mom's kitchen and living room, her front and back porch. That's where it started out of, her dining room table. And so I just knew it was time to get over there and really make the commitment to the community and to the mission and to the women to be able to work with them more. So this Firehouse is right at the top of the city, right at the 5 points, right at the center, and I just feel like we just sit up there and are just able to dream and look out and see our neighbors and our neighborhood and just think about the great things that we can do to be a part of that community and to help solve the homelessness and the unemployment that's right there, right where we're living. I also thought too that it was just really important to be in the neighborhood and a part of where I serve. Here is G.E.A.R. As I mentioned, it's a sustainable home accents and furnishings company and travel bags. And it starts with the basis of coffee bean sacks. And so I really look at this and think, you know, it's really the story of what we do. It's all the different textures and colors and fabrics and all the things, scraps. Everything is recycled, repurposed, upcycled. And so it's really what most people would throw away, we use to make something beautiful. So I just think the underlying message, even in everything that we make, is the story of what we're doing and the people that we serve. So what I would like to do, I mean, if y'all are interested in learning more about Re-Invention and you're interested in learning more about G.E.A.R, you can go on our website. I'm happy to talk to you about it. This product, for me, when it comes to a social business especially, it's just a means to an end. Without the people we serve and without the heart and the passion that I started with, then the product really doesn't mean anything. This is something that we create to create jobs and to create community and to help people move forward. And so for me, it's like the focus should be on what is right outside our door. The essence of a social business is really those that we are serving and who the business serves. And it's not what the business does, but who the business is about that is the most important component. So, when I walk outside, you saw the Firehouse, and I walk outside, and to the right, if I walk down about half a block, this is what I see every day. And I see people in the morning walking out of places like this, and this is right in Montgomery, Alabama. And to the left of the Firehouse, if you're facing the Firehouse, actually the right side, there are beautiful restored homes. And then if I go to the other side, this is what I see. This is another image of what I see. So what I would like to do is turn this around and really just talk to you just about two things that I have learned that I think are really super important when it comes to a social business. And even though it's a business, what I've learned is it is extremely personal. It's about people's lives. That's the bottom line. And so I think when it comes to social innovation, that the social business model is one of the most brilliant concepts. I believe that this is something that truly has the potential to change the world. I mean, we say that a lot, but I really believe, and it is happening, actually. I mean, you know, the social businesses really are having a tremendous impact. And for me, though, it's not really because of the economic impact or how it changes the traditional business model, but it's because of how it changes us. And how a business model invites us to think not of ourselves and bottom lines, but to think of each and every one of us, and to reach out to our neighbor first, and to think of how the business's bottom line impacts those we are serving, and how it impacts our community, and how it allows us to invite others to join us in reaching beyond themselves. How it invites investors to rethink what their return will be in terms of monetary shares and shares in humanity. And that's why I think it's so brilliant. I get really overwhelmed by statistics like this. And this is just Alabama. I get super overwhelmed. And then when I go on a global scale, I feel almost paralyzed. And maybe that's how a lot of you feel, you know, when you look at the stats and you look at the images and it breaks your heart. And so what I have to do is stop and think and humble myself and realize I'm not the savior of the world. Those statistics are very, very important. But I think for me, I thought, gosh, you know, I can do this or I can't do this. And honestly, that's not about me as an individual. That's something for all of us to look at. So slowly, when I start thinking, I'm not the savior of the world and I'm not the savior of these people, then I start looking at images like this. This was my first mission trip to Bangkok, Thailand. I was 43 years old when I went on my first mission trip. And so when all of that gets very overwhelming, that's when I say, this is what matters. They are what matters. These 5 women changed my life forever. And you heard Courtney Dow talk about Nightlight Design earlier, and that's where I was. And I heard their stories, and I saw every Tuesday and Friday night on Outreach what they were subjected to. And they changed my life forever. And I don't have time to give you the full story, but what they showed me after a long month there in Bangkok is that whether or not they change the nation or the world, what matters most is their life. And that I'm not their savior, I'm just here to help. I'm here to be their friend, and I'm here to listen to them and to find out then what I can do to try and help them and to try to solve their problems and working with them. So not changing the nation or changing the world and their life mattering, that means time with their families, marriage, children. And for me, this is what profoundly impacted me, this was just dinner with the girls. And I knew on that Thursday night where they would have been previously, how they would have been pimped out in bars there, and I had seen it. And so I thought, I don't need to save the world. I just need to make sure that they can have dinner with the girls on a Thursday night. That's what it's about. So when it comes to what I'm doing, this is the most important thing to me. And this is Betty Lou. And Betty Lou has now transitioned from the mission. She's still living there. She is still in the house there, but she is now working with me. And this is how I break down the big, overwhelming stats and numbers. This has been such an important lesson for me, to bring myself back down to earth and realize that her life is what's important. If we get caught up in the numbers of people we will serve and the number of dollars and investors it will take to serve so many, and then the amount of product that will have to be produced to serve such numbers, then we become just a traditional business. We no longer realize that the crux of the social business is those we are serving, and we lose sight of what we did this for in the first place. We need to remember that if we want to break cycles, then we need to start out small. We need to look right where we are to see who needs our help. We need to walk right out our front door and look around and say, okay, who needs our help? Because believe me, our neighbor, our brothers, and our sisters are having a hard time, and we can go out and help them. If we are serving well those who are right in front of us, then we will serve well as our territory expands. And it's better to start small and do that really, really well. The most important thing to remember is how this one person will impact those around her. Betty Lou Wilson is a former crack addict, prostitute, gun-packing prostitute. She's a tough woman. She is my friend. She's the example to the others. And what I have to realize, and what you will have to realize also, if you are interested in doing something like a social business, is that the greater impact is not inside our walls. When she's there in the Firehouse working with me, that's not the greater impact. When she leaves my place of business, that's when the impact happens. That's when she's the example. That's when she talks to her friends and families, and they see that she's changing. So serve the 1, 2, or 3 well. And here's the second thing that I want to share with you, and it's that you will stumble. I've stumbled a lot. I've stumbled into G.E.A.R, I stumbled into Re-Invention, I stumbled to Bangkok. This whole path for me, I've stumbled. And as I said before, I'm not an expert at any of this. I just want to do something more, and work as a solution to poverty has just made sense to me. As I also mentioned, this path I'm on has changed so many times that it could almost be embarrassing. I had the incredible privilege to go with my friend Katie Brock. Most of you know her as Dr. Kate Thornton. She's my Katie Brock, though. And I accompanied her and her students to the Alabama Social Business Forum. It was amazing to hear the dreams and ideas of these students, and I was so inspired to see how they wanted to reach out and truly find solutions to change the world. And I thought, gosh, my role at this age and stage in life is to do everything that I can to help facilitate that. That's what I need to try and do. I was so inspired. At that, I also had the privilege to hear Muhammad Yunus speak about social business, which was incredibly amazing. With all this man has accomplished, I have to say that the thing that struck me most about this man was his incredible sweetness. I didn't know if the whole room felt that, but it just permeated the entire room. It just seemed that there was something more to him, and I knew that what he had accomplished, he had done because of his sweetness. He said something that just really hit me. He said that what had grown into something beyond anything he had ever imagined was something he had just stumbled on. He was so overwhelmed by the exploitation of the impoverished right in front of him that he had to personally take action. He won the Nobel Peace Prize for starting the Grameen Bank and became the banker to the poor. But I thought when he stumbled, what he was saying was that there was something right in front of him, and he stumbled on it, and he did something about it. He looked for what he had stumbled on. Blake Mikowski, who all of you know, stumbled on children who had no shoes, and he returned from that trip to begin Tom's Shoes. So I don't know about you guys, but I know for me that I feel like I'm in really good company when I stumble. So when you stumble, stop, take a deep breath, and look around you. First, it will be a reminder of why you're doing what you're doing and who you're doing it for. And, believe me, most likely will show you the next step you need to take. Thank you. It has been an absolute honor to be a part of this day and all of the brilliance that we've heard all day. Gosh, I'm just humbled that I was able to be part of this group. And may God bless you richly, oh so richly, as you venture out to change the world. Thank you.